Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Christian Humanist. I'm Damien. The topic for today is a problem with Father Mike Schmidt's advice on dealing with porn. I guess one could say the big P word in some respects because of its pervasiveness, ubiquity, and controversial character. Call it what you like. So that's going to be the topic for today. Of course, the fact that I preface this by saying it's going to be Father Schmidt's take on the subject matter, we will no doubt be looking at it from that perspective. Okay, so a quick overview of the channel. This is the Christian Humanist. In this channel, we talk about topics that pertain to God, culture, society, humanity, understandably, but critically in a way that looks at things from a human perspective, from a man-centered perspective, from a world-centered perspective. Okay, in other words, our concern here is not to evangelize, is not to proselytize, is not to bring the good news of Jesus Christ to you, okay, the listener. Okay, that may be a secondary after effect, okay, or a consequence, but that is not our primary objective. Of course, as a Christian humanist, as opposed to a secular humanist or a different kind of humanism, like, pragmatic humanism or behavioral humanism or whatever it is, there is a definite Christian undercurrent, okay? Our focus will invariably shift or gravitate towards Christian concepts, teachings, in this case, personnel, okay? So today, the point of concern is Father Schmitz. So a little bit about this particular individual, in case the listener is not aware of. Father Mike Schmitz is a very popular YouTuber, minister, one could say, Christian minister, a Catholic one. He's a Catholic priest, and he's very much involved in the YouTube ministry or the online ministry, using these new channels to help advance the gospel, one could say, and to bring more believers into the fold, and at the same time make the case for Catholicism, okay, in a very brave and assertive way. Kind of like, who's he? Father, now Bishop Barron, right? So they're kind of in the same group. Another point to consider about Father Schmitz is that his content, it seems, has a very youth-centered approach. It seems to me, anyway. There's more emphasis on young people, on matters that pertains to youth or people in school, teenagers. Because I've seen him quite a few times in Steubenville, giving these conferences. So he's connected to that. And Steubenville, if I'm not mistaken, it's in Philadelphia, right? And it is very much connected with the Catholic University and Catholic youth and so on. So anyway, that's a quick overview of the person concerned. Now, today, the focus is his approach, or rather his solutions, when it comes to the problem of pornography. Now, first of all, I'm a bit concerned, guys. I've heard certain rumors here and there down the grapevine that, using the P word on YouTube is a bad idea. You get blacklisted or, flagged, or your video is not going to show up. So I'll try to play it safe. I'll try to, but I don't think I'll be as successful. Okay. All right. So what is Father Schmitz saying when it comes to the problem of pornography? A couple of things. So predictably, if you look at his video, and I'll put a link in the description as well for the listener to consider. Okay. What Father Schmitz does is that he immediately looks at the problem of pornography as a problem. Okay. And what I mean by that is that he looks at it, quite understandably, one could say, given his religious background, to sort of diagnose that problem, okay, to say that this is something problematic, okay, that people who consume it, or people who are prone to indulge in it, there's something wrong with them, okay. The propensity to consume or indulge in this medium implies that there's something inadequate, something missing, something morally or spiritually wrong, okay, which in turn requires remedial measures, okay, that they had to find solutions on how to address it. Okay, now I'll get to the solutions in a moment, but the starting point of this critique is that whenever people engage the problem of pornography, okay, especially individuals coming from a religious background, who tend to be the most prominent critics, I would say. Maybe feminists on the left would also criticize pornography. That's a different subject matter. But today the focus is on the right, more so, right? People of a religious background, of religious heritage, people in this case who are involved in ministry. And critically, it has to be said, someone like Father Schmitz, who's obviously a Catholic priest, i.e. a celibate. Okay, so these are the kinds of people who are advancing a critique, I would say, quite prominently certainly in the digital sphere. So what is the problem? Okay, Father Schmitz starts out his critique, or rather his remedial measures that he advances on this particular subject, by positing or raising the example of this character called Matt Fradd. Okay, so I'll throw a picture now of Matt Fradd. This guy, as I've come to know, and I've done a video on some of his other teachings, let's say, is that he's a prominent anti-porn critic, right? He's basically built up an image and a career, I would say, going around the world telling people why consuming pornography is a bad idea. Okay, this is what this Frad character has done. Now he has a channel of his own, if I'm not mistaken. He's from Australia, apparently a proud Australian, and I'm nothing against it, by the way. But the problem is, Mr. Matt Frad is his own entire persona is encountering pornography, right? And he apparently has a problem, which I think goes at a deeper level. Okay, there's something wrong with him, it seems to me, right? And this is something I'll probably deal with separately, but Matt Frad's view of pornography essentially corresponds to his unease with eroticism and sexuality, right, and its open manifestation. Okay. In other words, the problem with eros and how that reality has not been internalized within the Christian world. Okay, so that's a broader philosophical point which I would put forward. Okay, I mean, use one example. There's a video of him. I'm not sure if he has taken it down, but Matt Frad basically saying Game of Thrones is a bad idea. Okay, don't watch Game of Thrones because it has a lot of eroticism in it, and that in turn, okay, would encourage people to indulge in more serious stuff, let's say, right? Now, this is coming from him, by the way, right? We're not saying this. He is coming up with these, assertions, and apparently he is affected by these things. So he's a porn addict himself. He's a recovering porn addict, right? And he is hence committed his life to addressing this problem. So Father Schmitz is immediately citing this individual as an answer. So there's a bit of a red flag for me. Okay, because as far as I can see, Mr. Matt Frad has a serious problem with pornography. Okay, right? If he is getting triggered, if one is to use that word, by, what is essentially softcore content which you get in shows like the Game of Thrones. Okay, and that is impelling him to go and look for the serious stuff. That is some kind of addiction problem, right? So that's just a point I will throw out for the listener to consider. Now we'll have to break into that as well at some point, which I probably will in the future, but. Immediately, we have a problem with Father Schmitz's solution to pornography or porn consumption. Again, he says in campuses, but this applies generally, really, is that we are supposed to look at someone who's endured this problem and most likely still enduring it. Okay, it's a fair conjecture, for a lot of these people who come out and say this is pornography, it's bad, whatnot. But usually the person saying it is the one who's suffering from that problem. Okay, and one has to think, right? If you take a step back and say, why is this sort of thing very prominent within religious circles, within Catholic circles, within religious orders, one could say, right? I mean, the only logical explanation is that these people are not getting it. Okay, they're not getting it, frankly speaking, and that critically brings us to the next point, the next problem, one could say, of Father Schmitz's solution to pornography is that we should try to direct our energy or direct our focus towards other things, right? I think he addresses the example of social commitment, right? Social works, helping people. I hate that expression, soup kitchens, right? You go and help people, volunteer your time for social causes. Again, I'm not saying these things are bad necessarily, but I just said the idea that somehow your urge for what is essentially desire, what is essentially intimacy, right? The need for that connection, okay, that somehow has to be substituted with, social works, okay? You gotta, direct your energies towards something that, essentially takes that excess, takes away that zest or potency. Okay, I mean, that doesn't really address the problem. Okay, you're just going around in circles, really. You're just trying to run away from it. Okay, so that is a bad example. Okay, don't use that example if you're suffering with porn consumption or porn addiction. And by the way, that's another deep issue which I will not get into today. There's a very serious difference between porn addiction and porn consumption. Okay, porn addiction is a case of people not being able to control themselves, people not being able to resist the urge to go online and consume these sort of materials, especially when they have other commitments, like people consuming pornography at work. Okay, that's a very serious issue. Okay, it's not the same as doing it at your home or in after hours or whatever, right? If you're in your workplace, even if it's in the office after hours, that is still a problem. Okay, because you're using public or machines that are not under your control. Okay. As ridiculous. And in fact, there were cases, I think, in the United States where people were using, machines to access hardcore pornography, and they got caught, and they got fired, and so on. Or people using public libraries to access this sort of thing. So that is a very serious issue. It means the person has no control. It means that person has, there's something else going on. Okay. And at a deeper level, I think, going back to the point I made about intimacy, oftentimes it means that are people who are lacking that connection, they're lacking that human element. Okay, So that requires a certain set of remedial measures which we need to address. Which, by the way, this Father Schmitz and frankly none of these people, Matt Fradd included, really engage that problem. Again, that is something I'll get into in a moment. But critically here, folks, we need to understand that pornography is a very complex matter. Porn consumption and porn addiction are not the same thing. Okay, and the people consume these sort of things for a variety of different reasons. Okay, and these reasons vary with respect to age group, with respect to their status in marriage. Are they single? Okay, with respect to their gender. Okay, so this is a complex problem, and it's not something that we can sit around and just say, oh, this is the problem, we have to deal with it this way, right? Listen to Matt Fradd, who himself is a porn addict, right? And I don't think, listening to him, you don't get the impression he's really found a way out of that problem. So that's one thing. And then the next issue is the social justice thing, right? Get out of the house, go and help people, direct all that energy outward into social works. Again, I don't think that's necessarily a bad idea when it comes to the question of energy, and you need to find someone outlet to do it. But that doesn't really address the core problem, does it? Okay, it doesn't really find a way to address the fact that you are lonely. Now you're getting somewhere. You're not getting the right kind of intimacy with another person. Okay, you're a guy, you're single. I mean, frankly speaking, a lot of these people, in this case, the people in campuses and so on, they're lonely and whatnot. They need to find a girl. They need to go out. And again, folks, and this is something I've addressed before in a different video. It's not just the act of intimacy itself. Okay, it's the need for connection with another human being, right? And oftentimes when that is not addressed at any level, okay, that means guys are not going out, guys are not meeting girls, they're not talking to girls, they're not socializing with them, and this happens a lot in campuses, by the way, and any time in your life. So that creates this gap, this void, and that has to be filled. Okay, so it's not just about sex. Okay, it's about having that relational component. And the problem with these kinds of people, Matt Fradd and frankly Father Schmitz himself, is that they don't really provide solutions. Okay, going back to his video, the next response that he says, okay, is that we need to, what was it? Yeah, we need to go to confession. Okay, so that's the next answer. So if you have a problem with pornography, you're consuming it and whatnot, you need to go to confession and confess and say, oh Lord, I've sinned against you by indulging in erotic material. Now, free me from this. Okay, now, is that really a solution? Now, think about it for a second, folks. Now, again, admittedly, it is a moral issue. It is a spiritual issue. No one is denying it. And I, as a Christian myself, right, I'm the Christian humanist, but I do value the Christian ethic, right? And the spiritual dimension. Okay, so yes, the sacrament of reconciliation will help, but that does not address the underlying problem. Okay, if you're sexually frustrated, if you're lonely, okay, if you're not getting busy, right? And again, folks, I know this. I worked in this area, right? Men who are struggling to go out, men who are struggling to meet girls, men who are struggling to just approach a girl and say hi. That's it's an increasingly pervasive problem, especially in today's world, especially my generation, right? Generation Y and probably even with younger people, right? They're not getting it, right? I mean, like, for example, in the United States, teen pregnancies have fallen off a cliff, right? I think in the 90s and so on, it was very high. Now it's going down consistently, not only because of abortions and, contraception, but people are just not having enough sex, okay? So there's a deep issue there, okay? Now, you when you listen to people like Matt Fradd, you bring those clowns into the equation, right? Matt Fradd, by the way, he's one of these chastity people, right? Chastity, virginity business guys, right? Preaching the good news of Jesus Christ, at the same time, forcing the narrative of, don't have sex till you get married. But that is the problem, is it not? Okay? The reason why people are consuming pornography is because they're not getting busy. They're not getting laid, right? So pornography becomes an outlet. Okay, it's essentially a sex substitute. Okay, now you have that problem, as a remedial measure, but that is not the answer. Okay, okay. So you need real relationships. Okay, you need real connections, and you need to give people the tools and the know-how and the confidence. Okay, and this is true for men, especially for men. Okay, let's face it, guys. Porn consumption is predominantly a male thing. It's a male indulgence, right? Overwhelmingly. Okay. The pornographic industry itself is catered to male sensibilities, from Playboy to Penthouse to all these other online forums, and most notably OnlyFans. Okay, OnlyFans, as far as I know, is predominantly a male consumption, female supply. Right, that's how the dynamics work. Men pay for women to take off their clothes via the digital medium. So this is the thing. So this is a very complicated problem. Okay, and we need to look at these things for what they are. Okay, and with people like Father Schmitz, who's saying that we should find ways of giving our time for others. We should go for confession. We should not accept the fact that we are broke. We should not feel too guilty about it. Well, of course you shouldn't feel too guilty, because what it means is that you're not satisfied with your personal life. You don't have a personal life. That's what it means. Okay? You don't have anything going on for you. Okay, fix that first. Okay, and the problem is with people like Father Schmitz and Manfred and whoever who's involved in this, they don't provide those remedial measures. They don't provide concrete solutions. Instead, they provide the opposite. Okay, Manfred, and I'll close on this particular point. I don't want to draw this out too long. It has this whole what do you call evangelical whole ministry revolving around telling young people not to have sex till they get married, that they should hold off till they find their spouse. So until that happens, if that happens, if that ever happens, okay, you're just stuck there, not going out, not meeting people, presumably, right? Not having intercourse, and now, so you can see the problem here, right? This is a problem that's self-perpetuating, okay? And then when you have people like Father Schmitz, who's a celibate priest, I mean, frankly, what does he know about life anyway, right? If he's celibate, if he presumably, right? He may not be as far as we know, right? He's celibate. He doesn't have sex. He doesn't have family. He doesn't have aspiration. And critically, folks, he does not have the urge to go out and seek and find, and you know how the game works, right? You know how it is with women, right? You have to pursue them, you have to make them feel comfortable. You need to face rejection. You need to face opposition. They'll make it hard for you. I don't mean that in a manipulative way. This is how the world is, right? Of course, it's easier for people who are wealthy and powerful, especially from a man's perspective, right? But when it comes to sex, okay, it's not a straightforward thing, right? And you have to work through that. Okay, if the solution that's been put forward for pornography, right, to how to deal with porn is that we should stay away from women, because that's what the chastity argument argues, doesn't it? And then we had to wait for for you to meet the perfect girl and marry her and live happily ever after. These are not real solutions, and in many ways it essentially creates a problem that they're trying to resolve. Okay, so without providing people the tools and the know-how, and if you listen carefully to what Father Schmidt says, if you listen carefully to what people like Manfred, what they say, right, they never provide the solution. They never tell you how to go out, how to meet girls, how to build that connection. Okay, none of that is forthcoming. Okay, none of that is forthcoming. So this is something for you to think about, folks. Especially if you're a Christian, especially if you're a young guy or a girl. Well, girl is different, I guess, the way it works with women. But it's not as straightforward. Okay, and pornography, if anything, as I said, is a function of a lack or an absence, okay, of sex in your life. Okay, you need to find a way to fix that first. Okay, asking the good Lord to help you. Well, I understand that if that's a problem or something, but this is something you need to fix on your own. You need to find help, obviously, but help that you need is relational. Okay, it's social. Okay, it's psychological. Okay, and God can help you. I don't know how He can do it, but recognize what the problem is. Okay, going to confession, doing social works. Okay, and the other point you mentioned, which I forgot to mention, installing porn filters on your computer. These are not the real solutions. Okay, they might help you. These are like but they're not going to address the core structural fundamental issue, that of intimacy, that of desire, that of love, particularly passionate love, erotic love. Okay, we need to have those elements in your life. And how do you get it? How do you get it? That is something for you to consider. All right, guys, I'm the Christian Humanist. This is Damien, and see you guys next time.